Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and this is the official Mr. Bucs Nation 53-man roster predictions video for this upcoming 2020 season. And I'll be honest, guys, overall, this was a relatively easy list to make this year. I know last year I had one heck of a time making the list and really just overthinking a lot of different things. This year I took a different approach. I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to be overthinking a lot of things. I'm just going with my gut. I'm going with my heart, and I'm just going to do it, okay? So, yeah, I've got my 53-man roster right here. You can see some of the names on this list already. We are going to be going from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen as we go through this list. But let's get started here. This is going to be a bit of a long video with the quarterbacks position. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers carrying 3 quarterbacks on this roster, and this is in depth chart order as well. This is how I feel the depth chart will be listed for this upcoming season as well. So it is going to go Tom Brady as the starting quarterback, Blaine Gabbert as the backup quarterback, and then finally Ryan Griffin as the third string quarterback. Now, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. We all know this. He is going to be the starting quarterback. But here I decided to go with Blaine Gabbert as the backup quarterback over Ryan Griffin, mainly because of the fact of how well Blaine Gabbert knows this offensive system with Bruce Arians, considering he has been with Bruce Arians now for the past 3 years in Arizona and now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And just the overall great things that Bruce Arians has said about Blaine Gabbert since they signed him last offseason. He has been very adamant about Blaine Gabbert being the backup quarterback for this team. And Blaine Gabbert would have been the backup quarterback last season had he not dislocated his shoulder in a preseason game, which made Ryan Griffin the backup quarterback by default. So the gift of Gabbert is going to be the backup quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Ryan Griffin is going to be the third string quarterback. I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will carry 3 quarterbacks given all the current circumstances of the world. It's probably on the safer side to carry 3 quarterbacks just to be safe. And I think that all 3 of these guys can win you some games. Tom Brady, obviously, he can win you a lot of games, but also Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Griffin, I think that they are pretty decent quarterbacks overall as well. Now we're going to move on to the running backs position, and this is where you're going to see our first little note here for later. I will talk about the notable cuts that I have to make at the end of the video, but here for the running backs position, you have number 1 being Ronald Jones, number 2 being LaShawn McCoy, number 3 being Keyshawn Vaughn, and number 4 being Dare Ogunbowale. Ronald Jones, he is going to be the starting running back for this team, in my opinion. It makes sense based off of everything we have heard from Bruce Arians, Jason Light, as well as pretty much everybody else in the Buccaneers organization this offseason. Ronald Jones is going to be having a lot of hype for this upcoming season. He just needs more carries and more opportunities to show what he can do, both as a running back and as a receiving back as well. And I feel like now with Tom Brady and the more confidence that has been built up with the coaching staff in the front office, Ronald Jones is going to be getting a lot of those opportunities. Secondly, LaShawn McCoy being the backup running back, I think that mainly LaShawn McCoy's role for this team is going to be a receiving back type of role. He's going to be a third down guy and really come in when Ronald Jones basically gets tired. I feel him and Dare Ogunbowale are going to have those change of pace types of roles for this team. LaShawn McCoy, I do feel, will be the first guy, though, to get those opportunities when Ronald Jones gets tired. And like I've been saying since the Bucs did sign LaShawn McCoy, when he does get the ball, he is still shown to be very efficient as a runner. It's just all a matter of being able to keep him healthy and keep him fresh moving forward. Now, Keyshawn Vaughn and Dare Ogunbowale, I'll be honest, you can probably switch these 2 guys, have Dare Ogunbowale be that third running back, have Keyshawn Vaughn be that fourth running back. If there's anything to be said so far about these 2 guys in the training camp notes and what's being reported, it's that Keyshawn Vaughn hasn't done a ton of very great things so far. He's been solid, and he's been doing his job, but he hasn't done anything that's really made a standout moment, nothing like that. Neither has Dare Ogunbowale, but I still feel like Dare Ogunbowale might have the edge there since he is a little bit of a veteran. He still knows what to do in this offense a little bit more than, say, Keyshawn Vaughn. And that's something I've been been talking about this entire offseason is a lot of these struggles that these younger guys are going to be going through since they have such little time to prepare, and there's not a lot of opportunities for them to get to show what they can do for this team. Since there are no preseason games and a very different training camp type schedule, Keyshawn Vaughn is one of those guys who definitely has been affected by this. He has missed some time as well, being on the illness list. So I think Dariung Bawali will probably slot into that third running back role, and Keyshawn Vaughn in the fourth running back role. Scrolling down here a little bit more, we are going to go down to the wide receivers position, and I have them keeping 6 wide receivers. It is Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, Justin Watson, Jadon Mickens, and Tyler Johnson. And that is in that order. I'm not changing that one. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. We all know how great they are. Scotty Miller has been having a phenomenal training camp so far. He has been an insane deep threat in practice with Tom Brady, and he's just been making all kinds of plays. In the red zone, been making some great one-handed grabs, been making some very awesome down-the-field grabs as well as a deep threat. The guy can do a lot of really good things, and I've seen some people compare him to Julian Edelman. He's not necessarily like Julian Edelman because, as Bruce Arians has said himself, Chris Godwin plays on the slot a lot. They're not going to be taking Chris Godwin out of that slot role. He's just a small white wide receiver. It is what it is. But Scotty Miller, apparently, according to Bruce Arians, is going to be playing a lot more on the outside as a deep threat type of weapon, and it seems like Scotty Miller and Tom Brady have been gelling very, very well, so I expect big, big things from Scotty Miller. Justin Watson has been showing a lot better capability this year than I guess I should say last year during this time. It seems like he's grown a lot in this offense, and he's finally starting to put it all together, which is awesome to see, because I was getting kind of worried about Justin Watson. I was relatively confident that if things were going to continue in the way they were going towards the end of last year, that he would not be making this roster. But it seems like he's making a few plays here and there during this training camp, at least if we are to believe what's being reported, and it seems like Justin Watson is going to be back on track and getting some things going in this offense, so that is awesome to hear. Now, here's the surprising part that you guys may be seeing. Jadon Mickens as the 5th wide receiver and Tyler Johnson as the 6th. Why do I have it like that? Well, I have Jadon Mickens here at number 5. The first reason being is that Tyler Johnson has been very much hampered by injuries throughout this training camp. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the reports or anything like that, Tyler Johnson has had a lot of nagging injuries. I don't think it's anything that's going to put him on the injured reserve, far from it, but it is something that has definitely taken away a lot of time for him in terms of learning this offense and getting out there and getting reps. Enter guys like Jadon Mickens. Now, there's some other guys as well that I will talk about later in the notable cuts section who could potentially have Jadon Mickens' spot as well. But the reason I have Jadon Mickens here is because, one, he has been popping up a lot in the day-to-day reports of who's been making plays in these training camp articles that have been written by Carmen Vitale over at TampaBayBuccaneers.com. So that's the first clue to me. The second clue is the versatility of Jadon Mickens. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost John Franklin, who was a wide receiver, which gives an opportunity to Jadon Mickens, and they also lost TJ Logan, who is a special teams ace for this team, who also is what Jadon Mickens, one of his better, I guess, defining factors of who he is as a player is that Jadon Mickens is a great punt and kick returner. With TJ Logan out, now there's going to be a little bit of a hole in that role. Now, there are a couple of guys who could potentially fill that role besides Jadon Mickens, but given the pedigree of Jadon Mickens and given the opportunities that are now there because of injuries, that being a backup wide receiver as well as potential kick and punt returner for this team, I think it's all lining up pretty well for Jadon Mickens to have a chance to make this initial 53-man roster. And yes, I know it's biased, and yes, I know they just released him a couple of weeks ago, but since he's come back to this team, he's been making plays with every quarterback. Ryan Griffin, Blaine Gabbert, and Tom Brady have all been throwing balls to Jadon Mickens, and he's been catching a lot of them and making plays during this training camp. So I feel like the Bucs bringing him back was a good decision, and I do think he will make this initial 53-man roster, both as a wide receiver and as a potential kick and punt returner as well. Now we're going to move on to the tight ends position. Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, Anthony Auclair. This is what a lot of Bucs fans are suspecting the list to look like right now. Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, they've been absolutely phenomenal so far this training camp. Cameron Brate has been making some very, very good plays as well. Anthony Auclair, he's been a little bit quiet as of late, but the reason I have him on this list is because of a quote that Bruce Arians gave earlier this offseason where he listed Anthony Auclair as one of the better blocking tight ends in the entire NFL right now. So I would like to think that Bruce Arians, who does value blocking in a tight end, will keep Anthony Auclair around simply for his blocking prowess alone, let alone the fact that he is also a pretty decent receiver as well. So yeah, 4 tight ends for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not too shabby at all, and I think that that arguably could be the strongest group of any position group on this entire roster. So very excited to see how those 4 guys can do. Next, we're going to move on to the offensive line. First off, left tackles, Donovan Smith, Josh Wells. Donovan Smith, obviously the starter. Josh Wells may be surprising to you guys, considering how I don't care much for Josh Wells, and why would I have him as our backup tackle? Simply because there's not really anybody else who can do that job besides Joe Haeg, and he will be in here a little bit later on in this list, but also because Bruce Arians is a big fan of Josh Wells, so it's probably safe to say that he is going to be making this roster. Looking at the left guard position, we have Ali Marpet, Zach Bailey. Ali Marpet, we all know this. He is great. Zach Bailey, Bruce Arians was a big fan of Zach Bailey this time last year, I guess I should say, before he got hurt and was put on the injured reserve. So I think it's going to be safe to say that in terms of all these undrafted free agents and, guys vying for those backup guards positions, I'm going to give Zach Bailey the edge here, considering Bruce Arians was a fan of his last season. Center position here, Ryan Jensen and newcomer A.Q. Shipley. I give A.Q. Shipley the edge over the couple of guys like Anthony Fabiano as well as Shackelford, simply because A.Q. Shipley knows this offense, and I feel like one of the reasons that Bruce Arians brought him in was because these backup guys might not have been getting the offense as much. They don't have a lot of more time to prepare for this upcoming game and this upcoming season as a whole, so you have to bring in somebody who knows this offense and can help out the rest of the team. That guy would definitely be A.Q. Shipley, who played for Bruce Arians for the past 3 seasons, so he would definitely know what's going on with that offense. So yeah, Ryan Jensen, A.Q. Shipley, both those guys are starting caliber centers. A.Q. Shipley was a starting center as recent as last year, and that's a pretty strong couple of guys on that offensive line. Next, moving to the left-hand side of your screen again, you have right guard Alex Kappa and John Molken, who may be surprising to have John Molken here. Alex Kappa, we know he's going to be making this roster, but John Molken, why do I have John Molken on this roster? I'm probably not saying his name right, it's fine, but the reason I have him on this roster is because of his versatility. He can play guard, tackle, maybe even a little bit of center as well. His versatility is what I think sets him apart from a lot of these undrafted guys that have been brought in to compete for these backup guard spots, and I feel like him and Zach Bailey are both probably the favorites right now, just based on what's being reported and from what I've seen from the quotes that Bruce Arians has gave in his more recent press conferences. So there you have that. Finally, for the offensive line, right tackle, Tristan Wirfs, Joe Haeg. This one's pretty much set in stone. Both these guys are pretty good offensive linemen. Tristan Wirfs obviously was a high-end draft pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round, and Joe Haeg was a high-ranking free agent signing as well in terms of him being a backup. So yeah, I almost was going to put him at guard, but he's listed as a tackle on the Buccaneers website, so he is going to be listed as a tackle here. Now we're going to move on to the defensive side of the ball. First thing I want to talk about, left end, William Golston, Jeremiah Ledbetter. William Golston, he is going to be making this roster. Jeremiah Ledbetter, I am a huge fan of his. He was pushing William Golston for that starting job this time last year during training camp, and I feel like he hasn't missed a beat since coming back to the team. He was waived on some type of injury thing last year. I believe he joined the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, but now he is back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think he's going to continue to do well and entrench himself in that backup left end spot, and I do think he will get some regular season playing time to show what he can do. At the right end position, you have Ndamukong Suh. and Raheem Nunez-Roche. I was trying to combine their names, didn't go very well, but Ndamukong Suh, Raheem Nunez-Roche, I think those guys are pretty much set in stone as well. Ndamukong Suh, he's great. We all enjoy him. It took me some time to warm up to him. I will be very honest about that. But Raheem Nunez-Roche, he's been getting a lot of love from Casey Rogers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line coach, Todd Bowles, as well as Bruce Arians as well, just for his overall energy that he's bringing to the team, which is always a good thing to have in terms of leadership and just overall team morale. And he's been pretty decent both as a defensive tackle backup as well as a right end backup. He is very, very good as a run stopper, and he's showing a little bit of pass rush ability as well. So very excited to see what he can do this upcoming season. At the defensive tackle position, we have Vita Vea and newcomer Kyle Love. Big fan of Vita Vea. He is awesome. Kyle Love may be a little bit of an interesting pick here, considering some of the other guys that could be back there, Khalil Davis, Benning Pote, among others. I picked Kyle Love simply for another reason of why I picked AQ Shipley. You bring in these veteran guys because they can learn what to do quicker than, say, other guys, and quite frankly, they don't have a lot more time to prepare for this upcoming season, so I think that Kyle Love being brought in, he's 6'1", 310 pounds, he can be a pretty good backup nose tackle, I think, and he would fill in that role perfectly. While you maybe put some of those younger guys on a practice squad spot so they can just continue to grow and develop. But having a veteran addition like Kyle Love, who's just ready to come in right away on short notice and be ready to go, I think is going to be pretty useful to this team overall. Now moving on to the outside linebackers position, you can see it on the right-hand side of your screen. Outside linebackers, we have Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, Anthony Nelson, and Michael Divinity. Quentin Bell, Kazin Daniels did not make the cut here. Michael Divinity is the one who does. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, they are awesome. We all know this. Anthony Nelson has been having a pretty decent camp so far up to this point, so it's safe to say he's going to be that third guy rotating in. Basically the role that Carl Nassib had last year. Anthony Nelson is going to be the new Carl Nassib, so I'm very excited to see what he can do. Michael Divinity, I'm a big fan of Michael Divinity's. I have pretty much liked him for a long time since the East-West Shrine game. Seeing him in that game, seeing him do all the drills at the combine and whatnot, and just seeing him go out there and show what he can do as a linebacker prospect was awesome to see. I'm very happy that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the team that signed him, and so far he's been getting some praise from guys like Larry Foote, the outside linebackers coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians. They've all been interested in Michael Divinity, and I think it's great. I think that he can be a really, really good player for this team and continue this weird tradition we have going on of LSU linebackers performing well for this team. So yeah, Michael Divinity makes the cut here. Next, we're going to be talking about inside linebackers. We have Levante David, Devin White, Kevin Minter, and Chappelle Russell. No Jack Sitchie on this roster right now, and we will talk about that in a little bit. But Levante David, Devin White, they are awesome. We all know this. Kevin Minter is a very, very solid backup, and he knows this defense. He knows what Todd Bowles wants to do. He knows what Bruce Arians wants to do. And when Devin White was out for certain amounts of time last season, Kevin Minter came in and played very, very well. I was super happy with how Kevin Minter played, and I'm happy that he is going to continue to be on this roster as a backup linebacker. Finally, 6th round draft pick Chappelle Russell. This honestly probably won't be that surprising since he was just drafted, but I do like what he has, okay? He basically had the same thing as Jack Sitchie coming into this season, was if he could stay healthy, he should be able to do some pretty good things, and so far up to this point, he has stayed healthy, and the coaching staff has noticed him, okay? He has been pretty darn good working with the number 2 defense versus guys like Blaine Gabbert at the quarterback position, and I think that that's going to earn him a roster spot just point blank. And also, he was just drafted, and I know he's a 6th round draft pick, and those guys sometimes get placed on the practice squad and things like that, but I really do think that Chappelle Russell is going to make this roster and be very, very good as a backup linebacker, and I think especially on special teams. So now we're going to be moving on to the cornerback position. We have Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Ryan Smith, and Parnell Motley. So the first 3, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, no surprises there. Ryan Smith shouldn't necessarily be a surprise anymore either, considering the play that he has on special teams. He's a special teams ace for this team, and he has been for the past couple of years, so that is what it is, he should be very, very good in that role. Parnell Motley, man, I want to say shout out to the Cannon Fire podcast, both Rhett and Evan, for making this guess of Parnell Motley being good for this team, because, man, that was a guess. I was not convinced on Parnell Motley. I had talked about it in the undrafted free agent video. I was excited to see what he could do, but I definitely thought that he might have had an uphill climb. I still thought he could do some good things, but I just thought that, you know, there were so many guys there. MJ Stewart was there. Mazzy Wilkins was there. I just didn't know how he was going to do, but he's been killing it so far in this training camp, to the point where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have already released MJ Stewart. He's over with the Cleveland Browns now, and I honestly think that Parnell Motley is going to get in over Mazzy Wilkins and over some of the other guys over there. So yeah, shout out to Parnell Motley. Shout out to the Cannon Fire podcast. That's just awesome. Next, we're going to move on to the safeties position. I have them carrying 4: Antoine Winfield Jr., Mike Edwards, Jordan Whitehead, Andrew Adams. This list, honestly, is probably set in stone for the most part. You could make an argument of Andrew Adams, whether he should or should not be on this team, but I really do think the first 3 guys, yeah, they're set in stone. Antoine Winfield Jr., Mike Edwards, Jordan Whitehead, they are all awesome, and all 3 of them have been having a really, really good camp so far, especially Antoine Winfield Jr. He's been getting praise from absolutely everybody, and I think that he will be one of our starting safeties to start off the year. I think that when everything is going to be said and done, I think it's going to be Antoine Winfield Jr., and maybe Mike Edwards as the starting safeties. I'm not too sure, man. I really think that both those guys could be absolutely phenomenal starting safeties. I love Jordan Whitehead as well. He could be an awesome starting safety as well. We're just going to have to wait and see between Mike Edwards and Jordan Whitehead, but I definitely think Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to be a starting safety for this team. Finally, guys, the last position group we're going to be talking about is special teams. Matt Gay, Bradley Pinion, Zach Trenner, I don't know, it's Triner, I think. Yeah, those 3 guys are pretty much it. Elliott Fry at the kicking position. I don't think he's going to beat out Matt Gay. This video will be going out after I talk about the kicking training camp battle, but yeah, Matt Gay, I think he will win that training camp battle. I think he will get a little bit better here before the season starts, and I think he will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kicker when everything is said and done. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my entire 53-man roster predictions video. If you can just go ahead and count the thing here, 3, 7, 13, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 41, 46, 50, and then 53. I can count, guys. Trust me, I've counted this like 4 or 5 times. I got 53 people here. But real quick before we end this video, I want to go ahead and look at the notable cuts here. Guys like Khalil Davis, former 6th round draft pick, by the way. I like him, but I just don't think he has enough time here to, go ahead and usurp a veteran like Kyle Love. I know he knows this defense probably a little bit better than Kyle Love, but I'm still going to give it to the veteran here. I think that Kyle Love is just going to be able to get ready on a quicker notice than, say, Khalil Davis. I think that pretty much every single guy that I have listed here could probably end up on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad. So Khalil Davis, I definitely think he could end up there. Mazzy Wilkins, I know that one's a little bit surprising. I know there's a lot of fans of Mazzy Wilkins. I think just point blank, he's going to get beat out by Parnell Motley. From what I've been hearing reporting, Mazzy Wilkins has not been doing the best job in training camp in coverage, and Parnell Motley's been absolutely great pretty much every single day he's out there. So I just think Mazzy Wilkins is just going to get beat point blank. Patrick O'Connor, his situation really interesting as well. I think he's just a victim of circumstance of Rakeem Nunez-Roche and Jeremiah Ledbetter being there. I like Patrick O'Connor, but there's just too much depth and competition there. Same thing can be said with Jack Sitchie. If this was last year and Chappelle Russell wasn't on this team, I would have had Jack Sitchie on this roster, but now that Chappelle Russell is there and Jack Sitchie just flat out can't stay healthy, I think they are just going to go ahead and maybe stash him on that practice squad just in case they need him in the future. But I do think Jack Sitchie's time in Tampa Bay is not done at all. Raymond Calais, this one's probably surprising for a lot of people considering the Bucs just drafted him in the 7th round and he can be an asset in the return game. I agree with that 100%, but I also think that Raymond Calais just simply isn't, it's just too much competition to say. Okay, let's just scroll back up here and look at this. You have Ronald Jones, LaShawn McCoy, Keyshawn Vaughn, Dare Ogunbowale, and that's after TJ Logan got placed on the IR. You know, if TJ Logan was still on this team, I would have had TJ Logan here instead of Dare Ogunbowale. I firmly believe that. You also have Jadon Mickens here at the wide receiver position, and there's a lot of guys who can do a lot of things on special teams, which I think simply just pushes Raymond Calais out of the picture this year. I think he will be placed on the practice squad and can do something for the Buccaneers in the future, but right now, so far this year, there's just too much competition both in the return game as well as the running back game as well. Dakota Dixon, same thing, just a victim of circumstance, too much competition at the safety position. Tanner Hudson, Bryant Mitchell, Cyril Grayson, Spencer Snell, there's just too many good guys. You know, Tanner Hudson, tight end position, yeah, sorry, man. You know, you'll probably end up on the practice squad. Brian Mitchell, Cyril Grayson, Spencer Snell, these are all guys who I was talking about who could potentially have that spot that Jadon Mickens has. I just feel like Jadon Mickens' versatility, both as a wide receiver and as a returner, as well as the fact that Jadon Mickens has been making a lot of plays with Tom Brady and some of the other guys as well, is what gives him the edge over these three wide receivers. So, yeah, that's just how it is. But guys, wow, I just did a lot of talking in a row, and that's pretty much it for this 53-man roster predictions video. What do you think about this roster and this depth chart? Because this is in depth chart order. I do want to say that again. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Give your 53-man roster predictions down in the comments section below. I cannot wait to read them. But guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. We are very, very close to the start of this upcoming season, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, guys, I will see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.